welcome to the weekly Roc Open Mic. We do this for you folks. You asked us to let you know what's new with the platform, what bugs we fixed, and also be able to do a little R&D or rob and duplicate from your MSP peers on automation ideas and things you can automate. Just a few reminders. If you're communicating with us in Discord, make sure that you reply in a thread or tag us, because we're monitoring many different channels at the same time. Also, a new thing I've been saying, but I think it's super impactful. I see a strong correlation around MSPs that remain manual forever and MSPs that are automated by simply whether or not they ask questions. So if you want to be successful with automation, either ask questions in your private one-on-one channel with the Roc, or publicly in the COOP and other public channels, so that you can get a response and engage. Also, some of us are extremely discombobulated due to the after effects of Milton, the hurricane that hit here in Tampa, Florida. We are headquartered in Tampa, Florida. Our infrastructure for the product is distributed throughout the world. So there's no product issue, but there is people issues. A lot of Rewst employees are still without power. There are 520,000 people in Tampa still without power. Nick doesn't have power, and he's sitting in my kitchen to remain cool because it's very hot here in Tampa most times. So please, everyone, keep everyone in Tampa in your thoughts. And I also want to thank, I did see a number of folks pop into the COOP when people were asking a question that required us to answer it. And a couple of you folks chimed in and said, hold on, they're in Tampa, give them a minute. So thank you very much for the help there. I'm actually leaving to go to PAX 8 Berlin tomorrow, so I don't know if there's any international folks on this call today. So I'll see you there if you are at that event. My next event that I am going to is then, I think, DattoCon. And so if you will be there, I will see you there. I'm going to try to get a, I have to check with my handlers to see if this is possible, but I'd love to get a dinner together with the power of good, which is you folks, while I'm there. So let's see if we can do that. I think that is my announcements. I'm going to pass it over to Ash now.
Thank you. All right, so we have a few demos. We are a little bit light on some of them, so we're going to have a little bit more Q&A time, and then you guys can let me know at the end if you want to see this or not. I think I mentioned it a while ago, but if anybody's interested, I did prepare a little demo on the getting and associating external object reference actions in Rewst. So can go over that and talk about that a little bit if we're interested. But without further ado, we can jump over to Nick first, live from Aaron's kitchen.
Thanks, Ash. Broadcasting live here from Aaron's kitchen. I will go ahead and share my screen and we'll talk about some updates we were able to make this week. Let's see, let's go with this one. All right. So we've got a few small things that we've added this week. Added a couple of design improvements to the new dashboard, like hover state for links in there in the news section. We've also added a few design improvements to the new org picker that we are about to release, and I can show that off in just a second. Fixed fixed some colors, some spacing, some dividers there. We've been testing it internally for a week or two now, and we are going to be rolling it out to everybody starting next week. We've added a JSON RPC base class to abstract implementation of integrations that use that protocol and make those easier to build. So that'll help us out internally to build those integrations more quickly for everybody. We've fixed our usual number of bugs here. A bug in the Rewst actions to list workflow executions with time savings has been resolved. A bug where deleted roles were still being displayed on the permissions page. We removed the padding from the blank page preset template in app platform. We fixed a bug where the refresh token wasn't being displayed in custom integrations v2. Fixed a bug in custom integrations v2 where incorrect data type expectation was causing errors. We've changed the expires at field to not be required for custom integration v2 OAuth configuration. We fixed DNS filter integration test action to fail on invalid API keys that previously wasn't showing validation correctly. We've reduced the amount of data being stored in Redis streams to prevent that system from filling up on storage. There was more data being stored in there than necessary, so we were able to trim that quite a bit. We've added a toggle button to allow users to hide and show other users' cursors for multiplayer on Workflow Editor. That's currently being reviewed by staff, and we will be deploying that to everybody fairly soon as well. We've made crate unpacking a bit more resilient by adding some error handling to the integration overrides portion of that process. We fixed a feature flag check for integration exporting. We fixed a bug in custom integrations v2 to prevent iterating required fields that have a null value, which would then cause the UI to crash and prevent people from adding additional properties when they're working on custom integrations in that system. Fixed a bug preventing triggers from being saved in some cases where integration overrides were being used during crate unpacking, likely related to that other bullet I just mentioned. And added handling to prevent legacy Microsoft configuration from being used in some cases where the integration had already been upgraded to v2. Some updates on some things coming soon. New org picker launching really soon. Multiplayer workflows v1 launching really soon. Bitdefender, granular permissions, IT portal, Synex, Australia Cove, still in QA review. SQL database integration has moved from code review to QA review, so some progress has been made there. And some things currently in development, Crushbank, Nodeware, WebRoot are all still in code review. Let me see if I can show off this org picker real quick. And I'm going to share a different window. So not too dissimilar from our last picker, but quite a few enhancements to it. It will now show sub-orgs. So if you have multiple levels of organization, you can see those levels all the way down. I'm not going to type in the search bar right now, but the search bar has been improved and will show sub-orgs, multiple trees down, as well as the parent and which ones they're associated with. So you can click to view children of a sub-org, and then you can also use the breadcrumbs up top to go back. And this makes traversing multiple levels of trees significantly easier. We've done a good amount of design here on the treatment. You'll notice some really nice flyouts and hover over action. We've greatly improved the padding and the visual treatment on these as well. And so we're hoping that you all will like these enhancements. The performance on it has been really good also.
Yeah, one of the best uses of the new org picker is like large MSPs that own multiple MSPs underneath them. You can now roll them up under your master. and see all of the MSPs underneath, and then drill into each MSP as well. And also for any of the service providers out there that may be rolling your clients up underneath your tenant as well. We do have time. Yep. Go ahead.
So we got like a hierarchical thing going on here. In triggers, there's often the option to like do all orgs or just your org. Would there potentially be a change to that where it's like just single level child orgs or all child and grandchild? I could see that being like a really critical thing to have at that point once you kind of start getting that proper management going on there.
Yeah, in this update, we've only made changes to that master org picker, but I believe we have another ticket to enhance the org selection for triggers as well. So coming soon.
We're going to have time on this call due to fewer demos than normal, so we can just chat. I did see some questions from folks around JSON RPC, and I don't know if we have anyone on the call that can even speak to them. Nick, do you know if the JSON RPC was added for Cove, the Cove integration? Was that the one that required it?
Yeah.
Or Daniel? Yeah, go ahead, Daniel.
Yeah, so sorry, what was the question? Cove was the integration for JSON RPC.
Yes.
Believe, yeah.
So John asked, is JSON RPC stuff due to the Cove integration?
Yes.
And then there was also a question.
Too, right?
Was Bitdefender that as well? Okay.
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay. There was already also one other JSON RPC question around. Can you scroll up and see John Rogers' question and read it out? I just got a call.
I see that. Can you show off the JSON RPC abstraction? I'm talking to Zabbix via custom integration, and it uses JSON RPC. Is there now a better way? So I don't know if Pizza is on.
I actually am on the call. I was gonna pop in, but just to clarify, we are currently working to add that into Custom Integrations V2. The first step was essentially creating that base client like Nick talked about today. Usually we do that after the kind of second integration that we see that utilizes the same authentication method. And that's what ended up happening with Bitdefender and Cove. So look for that very soon.
Yeah, so John, it won't be available for custom integration in the short term. It's just we've integrated with our first JSON RPC integration.
All right.
I guess that means that we're on to you then, Daniel. Or did you have more questions that you were answering?
Good to go? Okay. I have a very short update today. Okay. I'm just going to share my screen. So we're still working on what we got here. Let's share this window. So I don't have any big updates for new crates or bug fixes and chores. We continue to work on our top 10 crates. So if you've seen any of our marketing material, we have things like obviously user onboard, offboard, or we've got some new stuff like just-in-time bin access, MFA, and those sorts of things. So we're working on that right now. But I want to share some numbers that Adam shared with me. So sorry if I'm playing a little bit of spoiler or being a leak like Aaron. Just around some of the improvements that we've done to our top 10 crates over the last quarter, I guess. So Adam, Dan, JP, Matt, Terry, as well as some other members of the Roc who've been taking bug tickets on, like Gregory and some others. But we run about, I think it's 1 million executions every week of our crates. And over the last quarter, or sorry, maybe 2 quarters, we've improved our success rate of those crates by 7%, just from working on a lot of the bugs that you've seen us tackle over the last few months, with some noticeable, I guess, onboarding. Some noticeable improvements. We've improved that loan by 4%, so that succeeds at around a 96% rate. And then offboarding succeeds. We've improved both V1 and V2 of that to about a 97% success rate, and we continue to try and get to like as high success rate as possible, with 99 being the ultimate goal. So yeah, check back next week for some more stuff, for some more updates. But I just wanted to share some of those numbers with you, and just let you guys know how hard the team is working, and just kind of give some kudos to Adam, Dan, Terry, Matt, JP, and the rest of the team. That's all I got.
Thanks, Daniel. All right. I have you pinned, and then I have Daniel Bullock pinned right below you, and I think it's Canadian, US. All right. Now we are jumping over to Eddie, who is doing our education update for us today.
Hello, good morning, or I guess it's good afternoon for everyone. Hope everyone is doing well. Filling in for Brandon. I have no hats today. Sorry about that. Hopefully when Brandon is back, he will have many hats and better game tips for you. My only tip for you guys today is drink your water. Just a slight dehydration reduces your cognitive abilities, your physical abilities, all of that fun jazz. So if you want to be a better gamer, drink your water. Moving on to the actual updates. Shout outs to Oscar, Danny, David, Chris, Naveen, and Kier for passing the Foundations certification exam. If you haven't done so already, go ahead and take that exam. Can you get a nice certificate saying that you passed the exam? You also get access to our open secret Discord channel. And if you are a part of that Discord channel, you should have saw something show up there. So for those who did see that, who clicked on it and provided their feedback to me, thanks for that. And also congrats for those who went through that. There's going to be a more formal general announcement of this secret thing that I'm talking about next week. But again, for those who are part of Bird Brains, if you haven't done so already, go ahead and give it a click. Otherwise, those are our big updates for this week, and we'll have the more formal one next week. All right, back over to you, Ash.
Thank you, Eddie. All right, so now we are going to jump into some demos, and the first one that we've got is from Jen. So Jen, you had, actually this is something that you made for a client, is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, they had a request going to take their global address list of all of their licensed users, not shared mailboxes or anything like that, and sync them to their contacts so that they can use the iPhone sync to contacts so that they have everybody on their phone. So this only took a couple hours to put together. It's pretty much just get the organization, get the licensed users, start the contact list processing. So after the licensed user lookup, I have one here with items to process all the users, and then I had one here just to do a test. So once you go into the contact processing, it looks up the user contacts and goes through a loop. If they have more than 999 contacts, it's going to loop over that contact list to pull all of the contacts. Because I know some people with some massive contact lists. And then it just processes it. I have a lot of Jinja here about, which users to add that don't exist, do exist, in the global address list versus the contact list. And it just goes and creates the contact or deletes the contact. And then this is just a one process contact that takes the inputs. The first time I ran this for them, it had like almost 8,000 actions. And then the second time I ran it for them, there was like 800. So it took almost an hour the first time, like 8 minutes the second time. But yeah, they were very happy with it, cleaned up their contacts really well. The Jinja is probably the hardest part to do with all of this, just to say, you know, hey, this is the definitive list of people that are not in the global address list anymore, and I want to make sure that they get deleted, and then combining the two lists and making that full list of users to remove. You know, checking to see if there's duplicate contacts and making sure that if I want to remove the duplicate contacts, I'm not removing, you know, good contacts. I'm only removing the ones that haven't been updated recently. You know, so silly little things like that, trying to cover most of the bases. And one small part that I wanted to maybe go over with them too was, you know, if somebody doesn't have the right display name versus surname and given name, like somebody got married and they didn't update one of them, but I don't want to make the assumption of the surname or the display name being correct. So that's going to just have to be a ticket. So yeah, that's all. It's very simple. Nothing overcomplicated. Made them very happy. They have like 80 something users, and you know, I can only imagine going through and updating that kind of stuff for that many people. I mean, would take a long time.
Thank you, Jen.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions or things that they want to ask before we move on?
Did that take you to build?
I'm sorry, say again.
How long did that take you to build?
Couple hours, maybe 5-6 hours of actual development time, and then probably half as much actually discussing it with people at our organization so that they understand what's going on.
So here's a question, Jen. Did you so this was for a client?
Yeah.
And did you guys bill him?
No.
Next question.
I asked them why we wouldn't. But I get told what to do. I can't tell whether we charge people for it or not.
Is it something that runs reoccurring?
Yeah, I have it run every night, and then I want to have it run after they do an onboarding for somebody. So do it like a, you know, after the new employee or onboarding workflow runs, do it like a on action after. So I have to explore that a little bit.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Jen, you said that you kind of had to make an exception for people who had mismatched names, you know, maiden names or things of that nature.
Yeah, not really an
you
exception.
Well, like I mean, you had to kind of work around that. Do you have a manual or like a second automation for correcting those? Because I know that can be a
Not yet. Like I
thing
said, I don't
to
want to
tell us
make
to
the
try and straighten
assumption.
this out.
I don't want to make the assumption that whoever did go in and update the name actually updated like the surname versus just updating the display name. So I don't want to change somebody's name back to their original name, I guess. So no, it's just creating the contact as it is in Graph, and then I can have a ticket afterward to say, hey, this person's, you know, surname doesn't match the surname in their display name. Is this correct? Do we want to go in there and update it? You know, can you reach out to this person and find out what their real last name is, so that we can update it?
Be cool to send out like a Rewst form that
Mhm.
dynamically filled out and just kind of send it to HR and have them choose who's all got the right
Yeah.
names or which names are correct.
That's a wonderful idea, Alvin. I like that idea. I've been meaning to explore a little bit, like sending out emails, you know, for the approvals and stuff like that. I haven't delved into that so much. So
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, Brandon. You.
Awesome. Cool. Well, the other Brandon is not here today, so I will carry on wearing his hats that showed up at our office the other day. So I'll put that on for the rest of this. All right. So when working in the Microsoft system, Graph is awesome. We love Graph. Sometimes Graph doesn't do all the things we need it to do, though. One of those areas is the Azure ID Entra Magenta portal. There are some things in there, like managing hardware OAuth tokens and password reset settings, where Graph doesn't have an endpoint for that yet. And the Graph endpoint specifically for the hardware tokens has been in preview coming soon for a very, very long time. And I'm not going to hold my breath that it's going to show up eventually. So what I want to figure out how to do is get access to that. Now I'm going to share my screen out here, and I'll show you what kind of led to this. So if anyone here is familiar with developing for any sort of API, you're familiar with the magical F12 tab with the network capture. And there is, when you're clicking around the Entra portal, you'll notice that there is this main iam-adxazure.com/API here. And I want to get to this, but I can't use Graph for that. So let's say I want to pull the password reset policies, and I get this nice response back of all of the different things that are enabled. None of them are enabled because we moved to converged, but you can see if it was, you can pull that here, and then enable group ID is all users. So what I figured out was you can impersonate someone who has permissions to access this with a refresh and access token. And the way you do that is with this flow here for device authentication. So rather than authenticate through an interactive flow to get a token for you to use in your browser, you can say, I want to get a token to use this account on something else. And if that user service principal that you use to acquire that token has access to the portal, then it can do those things. So a little bit more verbose explanation. This is designed for smart TVs, IoT devices, printers. You visit a web page on a browser and sign in. If anyone rolls Teams phones, you're probably familiar with this flow. So let's pretend to be smart TVs, because to Azure, they just support smart TVs now, and you can load up the portal with that as many times as you want. So we need to first off figure out what we're going to use to pretend to be here. There's a number of first-party applications. One of those is the PowerShell module for Azure. So if I do Control F PowerShell, we have a application ID down here, and this is what we're going to submit our scope as, or for our client ID. The scope we're going to use is for the Azure AD Ibiza front end. I don't know why they call it Ibiza. Kelvin might know. If anyone here knows, it's probably Kelvin. Maybe they were on vacation and partying in Ibiza when they made the front end, but this is what you see.
Ibiza was the very first version of Azure developed by a third-party company that Microsoft bought.
Interesting. See, I knew you'd know that. So this is what you see when you go to the Azure AD front end. It's still called that. And there's a nice application ID we can pull from here. So let's go ahead and generate a request. And I made this in a way to be somewhat adaptable. And right now it only supports that Azure AD front end, but there's options to put more. This is going to be really any scope you want to impersonate. So we're going to start off with the defined beginning, and we're going to get tenant information because I need to get the tenant ID to craft the request here. And this request is going to be to log into Microsoft.com/tenant ID OAuth2 device code. We have some headers on here, and then some URL queries to do the resource, which is the one we select out of the form. This is going to be the AD Ibiza front end UI ID here. And then this client ID is going to be pertaining to be the Azure PowerShell agent. Once we get that, we're going to get some responses out of it, and we're going to craft an email to send to the person who submitted the form under the user.username. And it's going to say, hi, the user impersonation request has been generated by your email address. This email has been designated to complete designed to complete the authentication. The target resource is whatever the resource you picked is. There is a disclaimer both on the form and in the email saying that the access token and refresh token are going to be stored as org variables. They are secret org variables, so you can't just look at them in plain text, but you can recall them. So It will have persistent user impersonation tokens stored in Rewst. It's recommended that a service account be used. This account should have MFA enabled. It is going to probably be performing privileged activities if you're doing with this. And then if you suspect it's been compromised, you could revoke the stored tokens in Entra. And then out of that, we're just spitting out the message from the request we made earlier, which tells you to go and enter device code. The code will expire in the Unix timestamp for now, plus the expires in value, and then convert that out of epoch. Generate new code, just resubmit the form. Now back in our authentication flow, we can see we are at here. So until the user completes the off challenge and authenticates, we're just going to enter a loop of we're going to send client ID and device code, and we're going to get either authorization pending if it's not done yet, or slow down if we're doing it too fast. In the workflow, it looks like this. We're going to go ahead and pull for success. And we're going to ask this endpoint here, auth token, to try this grant type with this client ID with this device code. We have a few different options here. If we get the response back of authorization pending, we're going to say, okay, let's go ahead and set a delay count so we don't just perpetually run this workflow over and over again. We want it to time out eventually. So delay count +1. It's going to start at 0 up here. So we're going to wait, and then we're going to try again. And eventually, if we get it done, it'll go down to on success here. We're looking for not this response. So with that, we're going to get an access token. It expires on and a refresh token. We can go ahead and insert that into our org variables, and then we're done. If we reach the point where the delay is more than 5 times, we're going to send another email that basically says, you submitted a request, it timed out, you have to try again. So what does this look like? Let's go ahead and submit a new request here for the Entra ID backend. This is going to start executing. I can watch it go through here. It's going to get the tenant ID. We can see that it got the resource ID from the form. It's going to generate the device code, send me an email, and it's going to wait. I get this email here. Looks like this. Hi, here's your template. To sign in, do this. So we're going to go ahead and copy this device code. That turns it into light mode. Wow, that's not supposed to happen. And then we'll go to device login. We'll put the code in here. We'll use our demo user that will very shortly no longer exist in my tenant. It's going to ask if we're signing into Azure PowerShell. We totally are. And then we're done. Let's go back to our execution here. So this is going to wait for just a moment to run through again. It should be almost done. It responds in like 30 seconds. It'll try again. There we go. Pull for success. We can see that we got it back. You can see the top part of the access token. And then we're done. We insert that in there. So what can we do with this now? Let's go ahead and go back to our password policy. So let's go to, where is it? Our dev playground here. And I can see that I'm going to go ahead and query this main iam-adx-azure.com/API/password reset policies. There are a few different things you need to add on to here to make it work. You, of course, have your authorization, which is going to be the org variable for the Azure impersonation token. You do also need to give it a correlation ID and a client request ID. This can be literally anything. So I'm just generating a random GUID4 value. And once you do that, you get a nice response with everything that we got out of the portal, with the browser ID being one of the randomized headers we gave. But you get data, and now you can query things that you weren't able to query before. Any questions?
Really awesome.
What use cases are you using this for?
We have one ProServe customer who is importing hardware authentication OAuth tokens. There is not currently a graph endpoint for that, so we had to find a way to impersonate a service user that had the ability to import and activate those. But you can get to also other areas in the Azure AD portal, Entra ID, whatever you want to call it, like the password policies. A lot of things are in Graph, some of them aren't. Generally, if it's one of the Azure AD IAM URLs in the F12 window, then that's going to be supported by this workflow. But you can really get impersonation credentials for any client ID. I haven't tried anything other than that, but I don't see why it wouldn't work.
Ginger Burger King. All right, does it work for querying CA policies, Hunter asked.
Yes, it would, but there is a Graph endpoint for querying conditional access, so I would prefer using Graph for that.
Cool. All right.
Kelvin does have a good point as well that device login is also very common for phishing because you can do stuff like this with it. So if you don't need to do this, then it is recommended to turn that off.
All right, we've got 20 minutes left. I want to give anybody who has anything that they want to bring up or any questions they have or anything that they want to showcase the opportunity to. You guys can also let me know if you want to see the one that I was discussing, if we can go whichever direction we want from here. But if there's anybody that wants to demo anything, now's your chance. Otherwise, we'll move on. People can vote in chat. All right, Jim Barry, yeah, if you want to go ahead, do that, that'd be cool.
So there's a thing called a spot instance in Azure for a VM that you care about, but you don't care about, things that can get interrupted or disrupted. And it's a way to keep costs down for things that you don't use often or that they're very recoverable. Well, we have one such thing at Relentless Solutions, and it's sort of like in a walled garden. I'm the only one who really uses it and sees it and knows about it. But it's very annoying when the spot instance fails and I don't do anything about it for a week at a time. So I made a Azure event to fire a webhook, and I made a workflow to catch that webhook and fix the problem after 15 minutes because, well, if there was no Azure capacity, and that's why I got evicted, maybe it's available again in 15 minutes. And this is kind of one of those, was the ROI worth it? Maybe, maybe not. But in reality, it's because sometimes I just get lazy. So let me share my screen here. Sorry, there's probably a lot of stuff on here that is not really relevant, but because I can't seem to find the right, oh, there, I found the right window. Okay. So the actual workflow is pretty easy. It catches a webhook the way anything else would catch a webhook. And because there's service hours for this spot instance, right? And I don't want it to cost money when we don't need it. If I check what day it is, if it's a weekend, I will get out of here. If it's after 8 a.m. and 7 p.m., I will go back and restart the VM. Otherwise, I'll get out of here. And if it fails to start, I'll get out of here. There's going to be some additional work done here on failure because there might just not be capacity right when I restart it. So I might loop for every 15 minutes or something to get it restarted and check the time. But essentially, the Start VM API is very straightforward. This is fully documented by Microsoft, and basically the webhook gives you the majority of the URL path that you need. So with a tiny little bit of Jinja, right? Nothing really. Take this alert target ID from the body of the webhook /start, and that's pretty much what it does. I apologize that I can't make this happen, but funnily enough, it did happen a little earlier today, and the resource was evicted, and I got the value from the webhook. But there's a known issue with Azure refresh tokens, but I've gone and re-authenticated this. So right now, I'm just going to rerun this, and it should go through and just work and start the VM that stopped because Azure ran out of capacity, and it didn't. But this is where I probably need more work. It's saying that it's not found, but it's probably not. That this is possibly still related to that refresh token, and I have another issue ongoing. So I do know that it works because if I execute it manually in Postman, I got it to work. So
it looks like you might have an issue with. Looks like you're getting a list of VMs maybe, and because it's passing in a list notation in that string.
Where did you
look at the URL
the
itself?
URL.
Oh yeah. You're right. This happened afterwards. Okay, I have to fix this. You're right. I see the bracket and the bracket. Okay, but the idea is that sometimes it's about convenience, right? And that's really why I wanted to show it off. This is very annoying when it happens and I'm traveling, or it happens and then some Power BI stuff that depends on these very loosely collected results don't get updated, and I don't notice it for sometimes days at a time, and then somebody in my office will like say, "Hey Jim, kick that thing." So this pretty much solves for that thing that is supposed to work during the workday. And thank you for noticing that, Tim. Boom and boom, right? Yep.
If you're expecting it to always just be one, you can just pipe it into first.
Yep. Over here, right? Right?
Yep.
And I have to maximize this window because I can't see the publish button. And I will rerun it from here.
Forbidden.
Yeah, this is possibly that 400. What? It's partially satisfied.
You got two errors there. Problems. One is with the error task, and the other one is the probably the forbidden. Yeah.
Response might be a little bit more verbose.
Yeah, expand that response. Yeah. Tell us if it's the.
Yeah, it's the authorization again.
Yeah.
And it does have that. I believe, I've gotten this to work before. So I'm in the process of, and there's some stuff in my channel about this off token thing that keeps sort of causing problems. So sorry I couldn't make it actually work. Demo gods were not on my side. Thank you for catching my first. But the idea is sometimes automations are not to solve very repetitive things, but they're to solve very annoying things.
Yes, thank you very much for showing that. Does anybody have any questions, or I guess we can jump into anything else anyone wants to talk about?
Everyone likes
something.
Jim, Barry, everyone
Yeah.
likes live troubleshooting. So whenever you want a demo fail, please
Absolutely.
volunteer.
Absolutely, yep.
Who was that spoke?
That was me, Reed.
Hey, Reed.
Hey. So yeah, this is sort of something I want or interested in feedback or how other people are doing things. I've been working on reorganizing, restructuring the way I do workflows. And part of that is, the concept of a sub workflow is very much the same as the idea of a function. And I wanted to get something consistent because I'm also looking at like automating my automations. So kind of creating a foundation to do that from. Let me share this window. Everybody see that?
Yep.
So nothing unusual really, just starting with a base workflow template that I can copy as my starting point. All of these sort of functional sub workflows. And so really, you know, we're talking about something that's meant to get some specific piece of information that will then be used, you know, for some greater purpose. And as such, it's not really meant to ever be like user facing, and the information that it brings in and puts out is really meant to be exchanged between other bits of automation. And then so to keep things consistent and to that end, the idea is to have all of these workflows bring in a array of parameters, whatever that might be, and output a consistent looking object that's basically just got its own unique ID, some kind of description, and really a payload of whatever the output is and a interrogatable type. So like I say, other things can consume these functions in a generic manner, passing in parameters and accepting the output. So it just begins by you know, basically pulling in that initial. Oh wait, I don't even need this anymore, do I? Nope, that can go away. So now I've got my template actually updates the source automatically now. So there's really not too much to do here. I bet if I refresh this, that goes away. Then you have an error handling that kind of does the similar thing where, well, part of making this work is to have some rules that I'll just have to follow. I'm not sure if there's a better way of going about it yet, but for instance, having things like a set of just context variables that will be used consistently. And so one of them is this exargs, which we'll look back here in a second. So the idea is you can just set that at any point. So basically you can copy these two pieces anywhere you need in your workflow. Set this exargs object to what it needs to be. And then when you call this template, it will update the context exception with the new argument, the new exception information, plus whatever was already there as an inner exception, allowing you to kind of build up a chain. And then again, you can return from this and decide whether your workflow fails or if you handle this and move on. And then at the end here, well, actually, before we get there, through here, this part, you know, you just delete and you do whatever your workflow is going to do. But at some point in there, you will have built a payload object on the context and provided the type and the description. And then that way, this end piece of the template can just run every time. And if there's an exception, it will update the output object to be an exception type object with that exception payload, or it will just contain whatever the output of this workflow was. So here's just an example of an implementation where I started with that template, and this builds my MSP client object. So I want a, we can look at it at the end here, basically a simple JSON object that's got my client information and the various IDs for the PSA, RMM, documentation platform, some basic primary client information. So now whenever I need any of that, instead of having to go to the different places and look it up, I just call this workflow and it will run through and build that information and store it in an org variable. And then the next time this is called, if that org variable exists, it just gets it and returns it and skips all the other API stuff. But you can see here's an example of taking those generic template error handlers and copy and pasting them, and then just changing them to handle, well, okay, here the organization wasn't found. So, write a specific output for that, update the exception. And in this case, we're going to go ahead and jump to the end. But you see how you could evaluate those exceptions and move around however you need. But then, yeah, so that's kind of the gist of it, if all of that made sense, was to have the sort of very consistent way of building these little sub workflows to communicate, like I say, in a consistent way. So I don't know, is anybody else doing anything like that?
I have something similar set up, but I'm honestly really bad about routinely using it.
Yeah, I'm actually trying to, like, say, rebuilding, but we changed RMMs, and changing RMMs meant a lot of changes anyway. And I had another workflow that I wanted to expand, but I found some weaknesses in it that will benefit from this consistent, like, so I kind of have an automation to automate my automations, and I needed more of a consistent way of getting in and out of these little sub workflows. So yeah, anyway.
Oh, I love that. Thank you. Did you mention that you moved? Kelvin just asked where you moved.
We moved RMMs from Datto to Ninja.
So we have about 4 minutes left. We could probably chat. Hunter, you mentioned that you had something. I messaged you on Discord if you wanted to. You could also, we can follow up with you next week too.
Sure, yeah, we can just follow up next week. No biggie.
Was I sharing my screen? Did you guys catch me?
You got a score of 0.
This is what CEOs do all day.
Any other questions? Okay. Well, Hunter, yes, we will definitely have you present next week.
Sounds good.
Hey, I'll do my I forgot a few announcements because I'm discombobulated from this week. We are working on, I mention this every week because it's a big flipping deal on our end. We're moving from Kafka to RabbitMQ. It's going to help us with a software development, I guess, architecture thing that you can research called Noisy Neighbors. We've got some folks that, for example, want to synchronize with their IT glue every hour, but the workflow takes 3 hours to run. Don't be that noisy neighbor. RabbitMQ will solve that. So the only one you impact is you. But we can all start today. Look how long your workflow takes to run. Try not to make the frequency of that shorter than the length of time it takes for the workflow to run. I ran into this several times this week across the clients. And with that, we got like 30 seconds left. So I know yes, the birthday boys' fault. They've done a lot of work to speed up those workflows. With that, I want to thank the folks for demoing. There was like 150, 60 people on the call today. It does take work to get ready for a demo. So thank you folks for doing that. And it can be stressful as well, presenting to large groups. So thank you for the help there. Please jump into the coop, ask your questions, help your peers, help the MSP community get automated. And with that, have a good weekend, everyone. We'll see you again next week.
Happy Thanksgiving to all the Canadians.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Have an easy fast to everybody celebrating Yom Kippur.
Thank you.
Meow.
Doodle.
Meow meow.